You ever meet someone with too many watches? Like, they roll up and their entire forearm is a display case at a jeweler's? Well, if you were in Berlin in 1945, that person was probably a Soviet soldier. And those watches weren't just for telling time. They were cold, hard currency. As the Allies swarmed into Berlin, war-weary soldiers from America, Britain, and the Soviet Union found themselves in an unusual situation. They were technically supposed to be allies, but they weren't in danger of becoming soulmates either. Enter the black market, a magical, unregulated wonderland where soldiers could trade, barter, and acquire all the goodies they'd been missing during the war. And if you were an American soldier looking to make a quick trade, watches were the answer. See, in the Soviet Union, a decent watch wasn't just a nice accessory, it was money, and not in a metaphorical sense. In Soviet Russia, a wristwatch could be traded for a cow, literally. Imagine explaining to your wife that you came home from the war not with PTSD and a drink problem, but with a fully operational dairy farm, thanks to a timepiece. Why were watches such a big deal? Well, shock horror, Soviet currency wasn't exactly the most reliable thing in the world, but a watch always had value. It was portable wealth, like gold, but significantly more useful if you needed to know whether you were late for a meeting with your commanding officer. So, when American troops realized that their standard-issue military watches were essentially printing money in the eyes of Soviet soldiers, a little unofficial commerce started happening. Officially, U.S. soldiers weren't supposed to engage in black market deals. But let's just say that when you see a Soviet guy walking around with 12 watches on one arm, it's safe to assume a few regulations were overlooked. Some American soldiers took this watch for cattle exchange very seriously. They realized that as long as they had access to more watches, they could basically name their price. It was the ultimate wartime side hustle. Find a guy with a couple of extra watches, trade them to a Soviet soldier who really wanted to go home with a wrist full of Swiss luxury, and boom, instant profit. And let's be real, the art of flipping watches hasn't exactly disappeared. These days, the black market has Wi-Fi, and people are still out there making serious cash reselling luxury items. You just don't have to do it in war-torn Berlin, hopefully. Turns out, trading timepieces for profit is still a thing, without any wartime agreement violations. If you've ever wanted to get rich flipping watches, you should check out the Vookum Reselling Community. It's where people turn a side hustle into serious cash. Click the link in the description to see how it's done. Who knows? You might just end up with a few metaphorical cows of your own.